I didn't really expose people quickly to my son. When I met Sam, because I felt it so quickly with him and we connected so quickly, I was like, okay, I gotta see how he hangs. So I invited him over and I let him sit at the kitchen table as I gave my son one of his chemo. This is some heavy stuff.
Welcome,
Dr. Laura Berman, world-renowned sex, love, and relationship therapist.
New York Times best-selling author
and host of Language of Love podcast.
The day before Sammy died, then you told me about the week after a conversation the two of you had.
I remember we were sitting in our living room together and he said, you know, I know that a lot of couples don't make it through the loss, something like this, the loss of a child, but we're gonna make it. There is not a cell in my being that is gonna be the same on the other side of this. I hope you like her still. Like, I don't know.
When we get into romantic partnerships, we often think about the future we plan for.
Yeah.
Why do you have to also consider the future that we never want to imagine? Shoes matching the sweater.
You know.
The glasses match the shoes that match the sweater. I just want to say a huge thank you to you for the work that you've done, for the groundwork that you've laid. You are a pioneer in this space. I feel like I couldn't have been here without you. I wouldn't have ever had the courage to even say yes to myself in this way, so thank you.
That makes me feel really happy to hear.
That's amazing.
I think, you're doing amazing work.
I'm so happy to be a part of the we now. New book coming out?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. What book number is this for you?
This is 10. 10. Yes. And I didn't think until this one that I was going to write another sex book, but then this became very clear that it needed to be written. Because obviously, you hear that all the time, that if a child dies, those couples don't make it because the statistics show that you usually don't for good reason. But it's not, I think we can be guaranteed that shit's gonna go down and it makes or breaks you.
All right, well, take a minute, go to the bathroom. I would say fix your hair, but your hair is perfect.
Oh, that's good.
And then let's get into it.
Okay,
yes, I live for a gift.
It's my sexual healing kit and some toys for my
off to a great start, Dr. Laura. Let's go. Let's go get it. I work for Bumble, and they have these trends that come out every year. And one of the 2025 trends for dating is something called future proofing, where before we even get to that serious stage of a relationship, on the swipe, people are wanting to know, can I go through hard things with you?
Yeah.
Not just can we grow together, but can we go through shit together?
Well, that's really some of the most important. Obviously you have to have a shared vision of the future, you have to have attraction, all those things, but I think that's amazing because most people don't think about that.
Yeah.
Now, there's only so much you can predict, but you can predict to a certain extent, I think, with personality qualities and also with just watching how they handle certain things. So I don't know, you could probably figure out a lot as you swipe, but some of it you're going to figure out watching them in action.
Because I don't know if I thought about that. And a part of it, I think, is post-pandemic, because we all just went through something collectively very traumatic together. And we saw how some people managed that and some people didn't. And that was the difference maker for a lot of relationships. And then I think with the political uncertainty that we're currently in, maybe it's more top of mind for people than before. Do you think it's a positive thing that people are now factoring this into their selection process that early on?
Yes is the easy answer. I think it's something I've said to people forever when they say, well, how do you know if someone's really right for you? I'm attracted to this, but how do you know it's going to last? That's really what because you could go through hard things by yourself, right? But is my relationship going to last through hard things? And is this person going to be, an addition or a subtraction? Let's back it out a minute and talk about the overarching qualities you're looking for and then what the signs are, right? So you want someone who cares about their physical health and fitness, right? Because they're going to be able to run and protect and help grow stuff when the apocalypse happens or whatever you're afraid of, right? You want someone who is flexible, right? Can they pivot? when they're going this way and they have a plan, are they someone and life throws them a curveball or something doesn't go well at work? Can they shift? Can they pivot? Are they a good problem solver? Can they come up with solutions, or do they just flip out and lose their heads or get angry and shut down, right? Or run away? So are they someone who can really hold their ground and pivot? Are they someone who communicates well? And, you know, when the going gets rough or there's an emergency, are they going to just yell at you and freak out, or are they going to work with you? Are they going to be a leader, or are they going to wait for you to make the plan and follow you, you know? Are they someone who's open to learning? Like, are they open-minded? And that's back to the flexible thing, but that's also someone who's, you know, you're going to grow and change, and there are going to be so many curveballs in your life together. So are they willing to not only pivot physically and intellectually, but emotionally? Are they able to kind of grow and change with you? That's super, super important. Are they emotionally resilient? Like, when they get upset about something, how long does it take them to come back to center? Do they freak out and shut down and like lose themselves for hours or days? Or do they take responsibility for their own emotions and move through things and calm themselves down? You know, how self-aware are they? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, those are all qualities I think we all want in a partner, regardless of whether the world goes to hell in a handbasket.
And those things show up, of course, through talking to somebody or asking questions, but like you said, it also comes up in observing their behaviors.
Yes. So you watch, or even the things they tell you about. Something happened at work today and my coworker totally flubbed the presentation, right? Are they bitching and complaining about the coworker and what a nightmare it is and freaking out and canceling your plans because they can't even deal with it? Or are they like, yeah, this went down today, but I think what I'm going to do is go in tomorrow and ask for a meeting with my supervisor and my coworker and see if we can, you know, are they, like, you can see even just the way, just like they say, you can see by how someone treats the wait staff, you know, what kind of person they are. You can see by even just not even watching them, but listening and observing how they respond to the things that happen in their world. You know, they lose their job, which is happening to a lot of people right now. Are they now going to sit on the couch and play video games for 3 months? You know, or are they going to start thinking about what they're going to do next and being creative and thinking outside the box? You know, that's a really important quality we're going to need, especially as AI becomes more prevalent.
Why do you need it? Because when we get into romantic partnerships, we often think about, can we enjoy our present? Can we enjoy the future we plan for?
Yeah.
Why do you have to also consider the future that we never want to imagine?
Because that's likely what's going to happen. I'm not saying the world is going to come to an end. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think for 99.9% of us, things are going to you can be unequivocally guaranteed your hearts will be broken. Not necessarily by each other, but by the world, by society, by things that happen in your lives or in your family, or by hardships. You are going to go through stuff, and hard stuff.
Your husband's name is Sam. Mm-hmm. Tell me about when you met Sam and why you chose him.
Well, Sam is my second husband and my last one. But I was married to someone who I met when I was really young, and he was he was European. He lived in Europe, and we were like pen pals. It was, you know, this was back in the day,
very sexy,
when there were letters instead of everything else. And so I fell in love with the idea of him. I grew up falling in love with the idea of him. He moved to New York when I was in graduate school. I moved back to Europe with him, and the wheels came off. And this guy, I was extremely damaged back then, like many of us are. I had a lot of trauma, was deep in codependence, and I did not see the signs. And he was a full-on sociopath, or close to it. He was living a completely double life with had another woman, several women on the side, but also just on so many levels. He ended up going to jail for the equivalent of a Ponzi scheme after I left him, years after I left him. But he was not a good guy. And it was a really, really bad situation. And so I took my time. I think I was single for 4 years after that. And I was a single mom too. And I really took my time, dated a lot, but I wasn't interested in making a commitment. But I remember my PhD, my dissertation chair and my favorite professor, when I went to him and told him I was going to marry my ex-husband, he looked at me and he said, well, I think everybody needs to get married at least once to figure out what they really want. So those big things that happen that break you open and break you apart, I call them AFGEs, another freaking growth experience, just like these big bombs that go off in your world. They, I feel, on a certain level are designed to be an invitation, like your life isn't working as it is. You know, the universe kind of scratches at the door, then knocks, then bangs, and then blows things up, right? And that's kind of what happened for me. But you learn, if you're willing to, you learn so much from that. So I got so clear in those 4 years, not only about who I was, but what I wanted. And I also was a single mother, so that was a piece of it. And my child was going through treatment for leukemia. So, you know, it was all of it. And so when I met Sam, we were on the tail end. I'd already been through the bulk of the drama and trauma of that treatment with my son. I had been really doing my own healing work, and we connected. We actually knew each other as young children. So
I love these stories.
Yeah, our families had been friends, and he saw me on Good Morning America. And so he said, if you're ever in Chicago, where he lived, we were living in LA at the time, let me know. And so when I went to do the Oprah show for the first time we met as adults was in Harpo Studios. He came in and watched the show, and then we went out to lunch, and I was like,
what a flex. That's where you invited him?
Yeah, well,
you're like, I'm gonna be at the Oprah show.
Yeah, I'll be at the Oprah show.
So you can meet me. Yeah.
You can come. But at that point, I wasn't even thinking romantically. I was thinking he was an old friend. I don't like I think the butterflies I never listen to those because that's the body's warning signal, like a danger. But I call it a uterine contraction. You know, like not a painful thing, but like a yes.
My epicenter of my creativity is like, yes.
Yeah, I tell him all the time, you still make my uterus contract. Really, really, really smart. I remember noticing that because as I'm a recovering codependent now, but as an active codependent back then, I knew like I could run circles around anyone, manipulate, like men that I was with, I could do something wrong, but by the end of the conversation, they'd be apologizing to me.
You knew that?
Oh, I knew that. I wasn't like totally conscious of it, but I knew because it was so dangerous for me growing up to be wrong or bad. So I had learned to kind of gaslight basically, twist it around for my own safety. It was just like a knee-jerk reaction. I wasn't able or willing to take responsibility for, I mean, it wasn't like I was a horrible girlfriend, but you know, we all do shit that we got to take responsibility for.
Yeah.
But what I noticed with him is that, because I didn't really expose people quickly to my son, but because I felt it so quickly with him and we connected so quickly that I was like, okay, I got to see how he hangs. So I invited him over when he came the next time to LA. I invited him over and I let him sit at the kitchen table as I gave my son one of his infusions. Because at that point, I was actually, he had a portacath and I would inject some of the chemo into him. I don't know if they do that anymore, but they would let us do it back then. And I watched, like, how are you going to hang with this? Not only would I watch how he interacted, obviously, with my son, but I was watching, this is some heavy stuff that I'm exposing him to. So I just, put him through the gauntlet real quick to see how he hung. And then by the end of that week, we were in love. And then I said, I don't know how I'm going to I don't know that I want a long distance relationship. I don't see myself leaving here, and I don't see you have a whole business in Chicago. I don't see you leaving there. And that night he sent me his itinerary that he was coming out every single weekend for the next 3 months. He had booked a flight to come out on Thursday and leave on Sunday every single weekend. I was like, okay, this guy means business. I am impressed.
And so do you.
Yeah.
So during this time, you're seeing evidence that this is somebody who can not just grow with you, but also go through some shit with you. How do you know if they can grieve with you?
Pardon the interruption, but I had to tell you about the incredible sponsor of this episode, me. I mean, why not, right? It is my podcast. And on that note, did you know that Lovers is so much more than a podcast? It's a deluxe suite of services designed to help you reach your intimate potential. Now, there's tons of free tools, for example, Shay. Yup, I trained in AI on the past 20 years of my work, so if you have a quick question and want to know how I've answered this in the past, go to the homepage. Then there's the newsletter, weekly letters for my lovers you can sign up for, and last but not least, there's my resource library of free quizzes and worksheets. Now, if you like these but want more, come a little closer. Introducing the premium paid experience inside the Lovers community. Connect with like minds, book one-on-one time with me, join one of my weekly classes, and of course, be a part of the podcast. The Lovers community is $20 a month for members and free for muses because yes, I created a free preview space so you can learn more before committing. Now, I know I threw a lot at you just now, so let's keep it simple. All you have to know is go to loversbyshan.com to get everything you need and nothing more. Again, that's loversbyshan.com.
How do you know if they can grieve with you?
You don't. I mean, I think I watched, he can be kind of stoic, like a lot of guys,
Which was a positive thing in many cases.
Yes, it's very helpful. And for me, who had grown up in such a chaotic, emotionally dysregulated, emotionally dangerous, and sometimes physically dangerous environment, he said what he meant, he did what he said, he followed through, he was calm, even, but could be stoic, and not necessarily with me, but about life in general. But I watched, he was extremely supportive and always made room, and this was really important to me, is not at all uncomfortable around emotion. So he wouldn't necessarily be like, "Whoa," but he can sit with someone, bawling their eyes out or losing themselves, and he was really solid, can hold the space, can hold all the stuff happening around him. And he had run a business for years that was mostly tons and tons of women. It was almost all women that worked for him. It was a consulting firm that he ran, and he was the CEO. So he was dealing with women all day long, and a lot of drama among them and between them and with their jobs. And so he was just really used to navigating the emotional terrain, but wasn't so emotional himself. So I by the time our child died, he had lost both his parents. I had lost both of mine and both of my grandmothers. I've been by their sides for all four of those transitions. And as well as my spirit mama, who was like my mother's best friend, but in some ways more of an emotional mother than even my mom was. So I knew grief. I had been through grief. He had been holding me through that. I had held him to the extent that he was not stoic through his. But you don't really know, right? Like, I knew he could handle emotion. I knew he didn't run from feelings. I knew he was an open communicator, all of which are needed for processing grief, but I couldn't have predicted what we would go through.
I want to go through the day before Sammy died, who you guys were as a couple. And then you told me about the week after a conversation the two of you had about the future. So tell me about the day before, who you were as a couple.
We were in the middle of the pandemic. So we were all sheltering at home in LA. And we were spending we always have spent a lot of time together because we've always worked for ourselves and often worked with each other. You know how that is.
Yes.
We can make the best of it. I remember saying to him, and even a girlfriend I talked to a few days before Sammy died, one of the silver linings of this is my teenage kids are stuck at home. Because you will find this, I know you have little ones now, but eventually when they start going out in the world, even though you're not going to obsess over it, there's a little part of your brain that isn't at rest until they're home.
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't have that part of my brain was at rest because they were home and nothing could harm them. What I was worried about is when they were out, who were they going to be with? Who were they being exposed to? What were they being exposed to? What dumb stuff were they up to? You know, I was worried about that, but I remember saying like, oh, the cool part is that they're stuck at home with us and safe. Ha.
Right. Can you share how Sammy passed?
Yeah, so it was February 7th, 2021. It was Super Bowl Sunday. And unbeknownst to us at this time, it sounds stupid now, actually it's not stupid because it's shocking how few people know this, but I had very few people understood, and I certainly didn't understand that that social media, in particular Snapchat, matches, like the algorithm sends drug dealers and predators to our kids and vice versa. I had no idea. I also thought that if you were going to be exposed to a drug dealer, you needed to find one, know someone who knew one, or go to a place where there was one, right? That if you're stuck at home during the pandemic, you were not going to be exposed to drug dealers. But I did not know that one had been sent to Sammy and had sent him a colorful, childlike menu of all these things he could deliver to the house, like a pizza, for a few bucks. And Sammy, who was 16, bored as hell at home, you know, good kids do dumb stuff. I certainly did. Decides to take this guy up on his offer. Sure, for $5, I'll get a Percocet or Xanax. Never tried it, I'll try it. I mean, he'd experimented with cannabis. We had talked about it. We were watching it, but that was it. And so while we were sleeping, he met this drug dealer. So we didn't know any of this until after the fact. But he took something that this dealer gave him, and it was laced with fentanyl, which is unbeknownst to us at the time, is in 65% of the street drugs. And it only takes a few grains of sand to kill you if you're not a fentanyl user, which he obviously wasn't. He didn't know he was taking it. What he took was pure fentanyl. So there was nothing else in there. So it killed him, which is happening a lot. I mean, 300 people a day are dying this way. So his brother and I found him in his room, already non-responsive on that day. And then the paramedics came, couldn't revive him, and then my world as I knew it exploded.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have asked you that question, to get that picture of this family who are weathering something hard together, but actually basking each other's company and joy and playfulness. And we all experimented during that time. Yeah. I tried things during the pandemic that I had never thought of trying before, but just because you have the time and no one ever thinks of the worst thing that's going to happen.
No, I didn't even know that could happen. And I had told them that because they couldn't go out, he was on the football team, he was a straight A student, he was getting ready to apply to NYU. That's where he wanted to go. He wanted to study international business. But he couldn't see anyone or do anything. So I said to both my kids who were still at home, if you keep your grades up, I'm not going to limit your social media. So they were on it all the time, talking to their friends, playing games, whatever they were doing, which of course made it that much easier to connect with nefarious forces that were reaching out.
You told me that you had a really profound conversation with Sam.
Well, it was less than a week after Sammy died. I remember we were sitting in our living room together, and he said, you know, I know that a lot of couples don't make it through the loss, something like this, the loss of a child, but we're going to make it. You know, he was like reassuring himself and me. And I said, I agreed with him. I said, yes, you know, I think we're going to make it. But the other thing I am very much aware of in this moment is that there is not a cell in my being that is going to be the same on the other side of this. Like, I don't even know who I'm going to be. I don't even know how to integrate this or live with this or process it. Like, I have no idea who I'm going to be on the other side of this. I hope you like her still. Like, I don't know. And, you know, let's see, right? And God bless him, you know, I am a very different person than I was. And he is too, I think. and in some ways, I think in most ways, we are both much better versions of ourselves. But yeah, he's risen to the occasion. We keep growing together, thank goodness.
And we just interviewed someone, Cree Summer, who's a longtime actor and a voice actor, but she said that something that her dad had that she's been looking for in other men since then is the, like, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I really loved about your story is that I think a lot of people will ask, are we going to be okay?
Yeah.
Can we get through this? How important was it for him to tell you that you will?
Oh, so important. And that's been one of the biggest strengths that have always made my uterus contract, is that's the steadfastness. Like, because I tend to be a worrier. You know, my default, if I don't really work on it, is to play out the worst case scenario and defend against it or worry about it or whatever, or what if this happens or what if that happens. And he is always, I mean, he'll pivot if he needs to, but he is really solid and optimistic, and he will always say yes. I mean, assuming we are, which we almost always are, he'll say yes, we are gonna be okay. Yeah, he is really confident in us and in life and in the future. Not in a Pollyanna blindsided way, but in a really solid way. And I think that's important.
That's extremely important and very sexy.
Yeah, very.
If you were to think about the things that you guys did during that first year that allowed you to be sitting here 5 years later, 5 years later?
4 years.
4 years later, with the strength that you have, with the light in your eyes when you talk about your husband, about your life, about your work, what are some of the things that you think as a romantic couple were really integral?
Committing, you know, in that conversation, we were like, okay, you know, I wasn't saying, well, we'll see if we stay together. I said, we'll see if you like me. Like, I'm here, you know, you'll have to decide. But it was such a huge statement for me as a recovering codependent too. And this is one of the ways that Sammy's death helped free me, because when you go through something that terrible, everything burns away. Like, I am incapable of small talk. I cannot suffer fools. There is very little codependent left in me. Like, any pleaser in me has gone.
Why, you think?
I think and it's still that way. It's interesting because I talk to a lot of grievers, and it's all the same. Everyone says this, so it's not just me. I think when you go through something this horrible, it just like burns away your ego in many ways, and the shit that used to matter to you is so irrelevant. So at first you're like that because you're just trying to survive. So you're in survival mode, and you don't have time to handle anything. You don't have energy to do anything beyond surviving and just continuing to breathe and getting through the day. So you don't have time for other people's bull crap, you know? And I think that when the sky didn't fall on my head because of it, and my whole world, external world, rearranged, people who I thought were in my inner circle ended up disappearing. People who had not been in my inner circle became my most steadfast companions. So everything rearranges inside of you and around you, and what you come out with is a more I think, and this is not just for me, I work with so many other people now, I see it, a more refined version of yourself who recognizes how fragile, like 2 minutes from now, everything can change.
Yes.
The most horrible thing in the world can happen, or the most amazing thing in the world can happen. Like, nothing is guaranteed. So just every way I operate is different now. And him too, like, he's a lot more easygoing than he was before. I think when the worst thing happens, there's a lot less to be scared of, you know? Because you've been guarding and guarding and guarding. And for him, that was the bulk of his energy. My nickname for him was Mr. Protector, because he was just always looking for how the kids could be hurt and how to protect them. And he was so protective, and our kid died, you know? And I think that just like, he's like that's our joke with our youngest. He wants to go, you know, to some third world country that's going to be really dangerous and, whatever. We're like, or he wants to go to some concert out in the desert in the middle of the night. We're just like, okay, he's not doing drugs and he's alive. That's our joke with each other. That's the threshold now.
I love that too, because when your defining role is the protector and something happens like this that can shatter your whole identity, it's like in that shattering, you're either nothing now, or you decide to be something completely different.
Yeah, and he has. And I think that's where what I was talking about earlier, that flexibility, that ability to pivot emotionally and to continue to grow and to continue to evolve. And we let each other do our own work. We grieved and still grieve completely differently. 10 days after Sammy died, I had this profound metaphysical experience that basically made clear to me that if I did not, which I did not want to do, but this is what I was told, that if I did not leave my family and go all the way into my pain, that I was not going to make it. And I really kind of felt that it was possible. Because after my mother died, I didn't properly grieve. I was doing a show on Oprah. I was Oprah's Sex, Love, and Relationship person, filming a show on OWN, 5-day-a-week radio show. My mother, who was my worst possible loss before Sammy died, and I didn't have time to grieve.
Yeah.
And within a year of her dying, I had breast cancer. So I knew that I could very easily, for me, not make it. And so I decided to I said to my husband, God bless him, he was okay with it. Like, I got to go for a week into the redwoods and go all the way into my pain. And I knew he was probably crying in the shower, and let him have his privacy. And, we navigated around it and and didn't make what the other person was doing wrong or right. I think that is a big piece of it too, respecting each other's way. It doesn't have to be the same.
There was this podcast with Cam Newton, and he said that I want a partner that I can go to hell and back with, because that is real love. And I balked against that, because I was like, go to hell and back with? Like, because sometimes maybe one person has to go to hell and the other person can stay home and make dinner. Like, we don't have to go through the worst imaginable.
We don't have to go together.
We don't have to go together.
Yeah.
And, or if we are going, we can also get help from somebody else who's been here before, who can help us navigate out of it. So defining a relationship on whether we can go through the worst parts together doesn't seem logical. But now that I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm like, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends I think you're right that you don't have to go into you should not go into your partner's hell, right? Like, we can hold the energy of wholeness and create space and comfort and companionship for our partner when they're, when I've gone through hard times. My husband doesn't join me there, right, in that codependent way, or vice versa. But you definitely want a ride or die when something horrible happens to both of you or around you, that affects both of you, that whether it's the pandemic or the death of someone or an illness or a financial crisis or the world exploding, whatever it is.
For a couple who is on day 2 of just experiencing something unimaginable, and the day before that, they were in a healthy partnership. So I think that part's important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, very.
So they were in a healthy partnership. This unimaginable thing happens. What are 2 to 3 conversations that they should start to see that they can make it to the other side?
I think you have to make a commitment to not really not jumping to any conclusions, because when you're in that state, especially after something terrible has happened, it's really important not to plan too far into the future. So part of the agreement is let's just be here right now with what's happening and make space for each other, right? And so questions like and you may not know the answer when you're in the middle of the crisis of it just happening, but what in this now moment, how can I support you? Right? And this is what you can do to support me. And it may not be the same thing, right? And if they're in conflict with each other, let's go and find our support somewhere else, and not depend on each other for that. If the kind of support I need is going to sap your strength, right? Or you're not available for that. And then also,
And don't take that personally.
And that was the second thing I was going to say, is not to take any of it personally, right? And to stay connected physically. Like there was a while where we like could not be erotically intimate. I mean, we would try, and it was almost funny because we were like, we're too sad, like we can't. But we would cuddle. You know, we would just lie there and hold each other, or sit next to each other, or hold hands, or like just mush my leg next to him to co-regulate, you know, to really keep that physical connection. It doesn't have to be erotic, going is really important, as well as like talking and sharing and creating space, because you're going to, who you are in the moment that terrible thing happens is going to be a very different version, no matter what happens, than you are on the other side of that AFGE.
Mm-hmm. And then 4 years out of that, we get sex magic.
Yeah.
So going from a place where it felt too hard, now I'm sure other things are hard, but keeping the energy to actually want each other, I think has flown out of the two of you.
Yeah, for sure. And sex magic has really grown out of me. The same thing I was saying before, that everything I do now has to have meaning. And I look around the world at people looking for that intensity and that erotic connection, and all outside themselves or in their partner or in all the wrong places, when it's really about like what's going on, what you can create inside you energetically, really what the ancients have known forever. I'm just making super clear and practical and helping you remove the blocks, you know, and how to create that intensity and that erotic intensity and excitement between you, whether you've been together 2 months or 25 years.
I only got to have you for an hour, but people get to have you in so much more intimate ways. What are the various ways people can connect with you and learn more?
Well, you can follow me on social media at Dr. Laura Berman. You can go to, if you're grieving and you want support, go to drlauraberman.com/grief healing. And you can just go to drlauraberman.com, and get sex magic.
Get sex magic.
Yeah,
yes.
And get magic.
Whatever gets me this hair, I'ma get it.
Come on, you
got the magic.
Hair.
I also got a little clippings there. That's why I asked you. I was like, how much of this is you?
This is all me.
This is gorgeous. Yeah. Thank you so much. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you.
So we covered a lot in this conversation, and I can't wait to unpack all of this with my lovers community. And did you know you can be a part of that too? Head to loversbyshan.com/community to sign up. Without making this overly heavy, because I do think that there is something, I hope, hopeful about the discussion that Dr. Laura Berman shared. But I'm curious to hear what stood out for you.
She just listed so many things that I'm just like, are so simple but so difficult to do. Noticing it in a partner, to know that if this partner is getting a little hiccup on lots of these things, then especially early on, when maybe it's little things, not a big thing like losing a child, like, you know, something like that will break you.
I just wish I had that reflection back in my early 20s, because I was a lemons girl. I was like, oh my God, I have a crush on you, but let's be together. I never thought about how is a difficult situation going to be. Like your mom says, what is it again? It's not what if, it's when. So it is going to happen. Some shit is going to pop off. And how is that going to be received, cared for, and also, how do you call it? Like, not mitigated, but resolved.
For me, what's really empowering is knowing that, like, sitting with yourself is a lot of it. Being able to just witness what you're going through in that moment and honoring it, having people that you know can hold you in that process, even if they can't like solve the feeling for you or like move you through it. Just knowing that there are people who are willing to be there with you is a really big part of it.
Yeah, I think there was such an interesting balance for me between not choosing a romantic partner based on the minority of your life with them. Because the minority of your life, hopefully, is going to be in grief, is going to be in extreme struggle or extreme pain. And so to choose a romantic partner based on how they're able to manage you in the worst of times versus the average times and the joyful times, which hopefully will amount for more of your life and relationship, didn't ever seem logical to me. So this is kind of a good reframe for me of being like,
not just how I view my own relationship, but how I view the importance of future-proofing relationships for the unimaginable, the unexpected, and the minorities of life. I went back to Toronto recently, which is always such an interesting experience for me because you'll run into exes or old individuals or people, and you're kind of interacting with old versions of yourself and old identities. And one of my exes, the way that they kind of framed something in their life, it was like a complete, like, woe is me. Like, all these things have happened to me, and this to me, and that to me. And I was like, man, like, you know, the major life event of childbirth even, or giving birth, or being pregnant, and the amount of grief and loss or difficult things I have to go through with that, the hard times I've experienced since I've been with them, knowing that I would had to have gone through those things with somebody who's unable to see past themselves. I think that those are things that should be considered, whether or not you're thinking, can I do life with this person? I'm curious if anybody also either has seen things in the past in people that they really liked, how they managed conflict that they've taken with them, or has ever had a red flag moment with somebody where you're like, oh no, like we cannot go through the depths of the hard things together.
Yeah, definitely my sister, like we've gone through both of our parents passing, and the way that she has gone through grief, and her requirements were to have us kind of grieve the same way, or she wanted us to grieve the same way. Otherwise, she feels invalidated in her grief. Because she's my sister, I'm able to have that dynamic with her, and I know that this is how I communicate, is I just don't bring my shit in. I just listen to her and validate. But if it was a partner, like someone that I want to do my life with, I wouldn't choose someone that, you know, communicates like she does, someone that needs or whatever the way that she does. There's no way I would choose someone like my sister to be my partner.
You guys know Jared's stepfather passed, and I didn't know him very well. And I was kind of feeling a little inadequate because his reaction to the passing and then the way that he was sort of grieving with me didn't really match. I'm like, I expected you to be leaning on me more. I expected you to be like more needy or more emotionally distraught. And he was like, well, to be honest with you, I just kind of feel like I find it most helpful and productive to share that with people who also had a relationship with him, you know, with people who also had that connection. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So even acknowledging that, like, of what your partner requires to move forward in their own way, and not taking those things personal, because the goal is to move forward. So there's like all these kind of different layers and configurations that can happen with this, but a lot of it really just has to do with, I just also can't even emphasize how much I loved that her husband said to her 2 days after their son died, some couples don't get through this, but we will. I also think that even in terms of conflicts with your partner, if you could start a fight with that, I think as time, trust equals time plus consistency. So as time goes on, you may not need to say those exact words anymore, but even, in those big arguments that you're having in your early stages of relationships, or those early traumatic experiences, looking at that person and being like, yo, we're actually going to get through this, I think probably is a huge reason why they were able to do so successfully.
I feel like if we just have our conversations with talking about the goal, whatever it is, at the start of being like, this is like the goal. We probably align on the goal. Now let's just figure out how we both can get to that goal. So I feel like in anything big or small, and maybe it is just, the goal is just, we're going to stay together. That's important.
Whenever there's a conflict, I do have the initial trigger of like, oh my God, what's going on? There's going to be a breakup. There's going to be a death. There's going to be this. My mind often goes to the most worst case scenario. I do have a lot of anxiety, so I like planning ahead and just trying to think, okay, if this happens, then this is this. And then if this happens, which is not how life works. And it's so great to hear that, where it's like, conflict is inevitable. Let's just start it with, the goal is this. I'm not going to be like, I might hate you in a moment, but I'm not going to be like, we're done because we have an argument. For me, that's someone that's very anxious, but also very avoidant. it is very helpful to be like, we're on the same boat. I'm not here against you, where we might be fighting or bickering, but we do stand in the same goal. So to me, that brings a lot of curiosity. It brings a lot of reassurance, and it's a way to make me feel seen. So I really love that.
Yeah, because I think traditionally we think of it like, let's go through the hard stuff and I'm going to grade and assess how you behave, and then I'll decide if we're going to make it based on that. Like, let's have this argument, and then at the end we'll decide how we feel. But instead we're like, look, we are going to end up together. We might get there bloody and battered, and I might throw some things, not literal, but we're going to get there together, because that's really what I want. Do you want that too? Great. Then we get to move forward with that. And then also too, there's more freedom to be an authentic expression. I'm thinking particularly when it comes to grief, when there's actually no way to, bad example, but when I was younger, right, there's all these stories of the crazy girl, right? Like the crazy girl who's like in her 20s, like, and so many girls, when you talk to guys, oh, my ex was crazy. She was crazy. She's crazy. But then you acknowledge that these are young people who have never been put in these circumstances before, and they are seeing sides of themselves that they didn't know were possible, because they've never had a deep attraction to somebody who also talked to their friend, or a deep attraction to somebody who showed signs of abandonment and triggered that part of themselves that they didn't actually realize could happen in a romantic relationship. And so, yeah, they threw a brick through your window. Is that indicative of that person forever? Like, no, like that was their first time being put in that kind of scenario. And it brought out a version of themselves that maybe they were surprised, just as surprised at as you were. And in reflection of that, they can start to like troubleshoot and do something different. When we're talking about these kind of scenarios, like the loss of a child, right? We're just talking about things that you can't even imagine how you're going to respond, right? There is no way of saying like, oh, that's a reflection of who you really are, because I didn't know that bitch either, right? Like that was a set of circumstances I've never been in before, and it brought out a brand new side of me. I need to know that I have the space to be that. And I can also know I can apologize in retrospect, but I have to explore this. I have to let this side of myself out, because I've never been here before, so I just don't know what I'm going to do. So offering, I think, that sort of hand on the shoulder of like, it's all right. I'm not going to judge you and say that your worst is indicative of your genuine character, I think would be really helpful. I kind of want to just ask in closing, if anybody kind of took away like, oh yeah, there is one thing that I really want to emphasize or look for in a romantic partner, or if you're already in a romantic partnership, like what's a quality that you would say would future-proof your relationship to go through the hard times?
Just someone who is equally curious about themselves and has done a little work, introspection, coming into a relationship. So, and that's the person, I try to be the person I want to meet as well in that regard.
For me, it's if we're not able to talk about the hard stuff, then I don't see that there's compatibility. Everybody has their sensitivities, of course, but I still want to be able to have a conversation. And if you feel uncomfortable, or you feel like, hey, I don't know, or I don't really want to talk about this, that you're able to communicate it.
Thank you guys for being a part of this discussion, and for bringing levity to it and lightness to it. I think the fear whenever you have discussions like these is that it's so heavy that it kind of squashes everything, where you're like, oh, I just think that my overall arching feeling is like sympathy and sadness. But I think there should be something actionable and light. And, the passing of Sammy was really tragic and really sad. And I'm really happy that Dr. Laura Berman was able to turn that around into such healing for other people. And if anybody is actually watching this right now, she has workbooks on healing and grief, and then she also has in-person events, and specifically in-person events for people who have lost children. So the work and the community and the support is out there, and I hope that people have the courage and the bravery to ask for help. So I think that's the biggest thing.